One of the highlights of the baseball summer in St. Louis used to be the annual barbecue out at Grant's Farm, put on by the wives of the Cardinals and the media members. Well, the gathering on July 24, 1988 got off to a late start, thanks in part to our next award winner. Will Clark was on the Giants back then. He got into a little scuffle with Ozzie Smith and Jose Oquendo at second base after a hard slide in the eighth inning. Anybody remember that game? What we knew back then, at the time, of course, was that Will was not a favorite of Cardinal fans. He really wouldn't become one for quite a while. Clark was one of those players that fans hated when he was on the other team. But when he became a Cardinal in 2000, fans quickly realized here that he was somebody they loved when he was on their team. Regrettably, his career with the Cardinals lasted only 51 games before he retired. But we are happy to recognize Will Clark tonight, present him with the Brian and Bob Burns Nostalgia Award.
Okay, well, before we get to July 31st of 2000, tell us about that fight at second base with Ozzie and Jose Oquendo.
Everybody thinks it was some bad blood between us, but believe it or not, it went back the day before. Vince Coleman was going for the stolen base title, and the Cardinals were winning 7-0 in the eighth, and he stole second and he stole third, and we were playing behind him. And so myself and our third baseman, Matt Williams, had some very choice words for him, and pretty much told him that he was getting drilled. And the next day, our pitcher, for whatever reason, must have lost track of his train of thought and did not hit Mr. Coleman. And so I was on first base in the seventh inning, and we were winning 5-0. And I said, well, if there's a time to maybe go a little bit out of my way. And I got in there and made some good contact with Mr. Oquendo, and I jumped up and somebody hit me in the helmet, and Jose was right in front of me. Everybody thought it was me and Ozzie, but Jose was right in front of me, and wham, and off we went. And we got on the bottom of the pile and all that. And, you know, it was one of those fun things, you know, that happened back then. And it was kind of apropos that, you know, when I did come back and I was a Cardinal, Jose Oquendo was my third base coach. And we were like this the whole time. Hey, buddy.
So take us back to Baltimore, late July of 2000, and the Orioles aren't playing particularly well. The Cardinals, Mark McGwire was banged up, and the Orioles are trading some guys, and you get together with their GM. Tell us about what happened then.
I have been told going into the trading deadline that the Orioles weren't going to be sellers. They were going to hold what they had and continue with what program they had. And on Friday night, they traded 3 guys. Saturday, traded 2 guys. And I saw the general manager in the hallway on Sunday. And I said, hey, you know, you told me you weren't going to have a fire sale. And, you know, hey, look, you know, you traded all these guys. I said, well, where do we stand here? And unbelievably, he said, the only team that wants you is St. Louis. And I go, do you want me to pay for the plane flight, or are you going to pay for the plane flight? And the next day, I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm getting dressed for the game. I get a tap on my shoulder, and they said, the GM wants to see you. And I headed into the office, and he says, well, I granted you your wish. I traded you to St. Louis. And I went, whoa! And I took a red eye to Montreal and got off the plane, and Tony La Russa said, you know, I'm going to sit you. I said, I didn't come here to sit, partner. I came here to win, and that's why I'm here.
Won a lot. 51 games for the Cardinals. Will Clark, 12 homers, 45 RBIs in 51 games, hit .345, an OPS of 1.081, and it wasn't just on the field, but you walked into that clubhouse and you fit right in.
Well, we had some veterans at the time, and we had quite a few rookies. Ricky Ankiel being probably the most notable, was a rookie back then. J.D. Drew was a younger player. Myself, Sean Dunston, Eric Davis, who all had been around on different teams and had won in their respective teams. We were sort of the ringleaders. And I remember, you know, that was one of the things that Tony La Russa told me when he called me into the offices. He said, we police our own here, and he says, you're in charge. I said, yes, sir. And we took care of business not only off the field, but then when we stepped on the field, we tried to give you guys everything we got, because I can tell you one thing. After having been an opponent for so many years and now being a Cardinal, it is unbelievable. Mark even said something like that. Said it is unbelievable when you walk on the field and you feel the vibe from you guys in the stands. It takes the game to another level, and we enjoy it.
Now, back in 2000, beer was allowed in the clubhouse. If Will Clark needed a Budweiser after a game, how would you go about getting it?
I'd sit in my locker. I'd just sort of relax. I'd look around the room, and hopefully it was after a win. Even if it was after a loss, I really didn't care. And first thing I'd say, and I picked on him daily. So I'd pick on one day and one the next day. It's like, hey, Keel, give me a beer. And then he'd run, he'd get a beer, and then he'd bring it back. And then, JD, give me a beer. He'd run, he'd bring me it back. So, the veterans took care of the rookies pretty good back then. Oh, and if you guys ever want a story about Ricky and Keel and throwing the ball up on the screen that didn't make his book, I got that one.
You got a lot of good stories. What other funny stories? And by the way, it was August, September, and then October. The Cardinals go to the NLCS and fall to the Mets. You made quite an impact in 3.5. You're getting an award from the St. Louis baseball writers for those 3 months of work. What are your fondest and funniest memories of St. Louis?
Oh my goodness! Coming to work every day was absolutely hysterical. You walk down the street, people, hey, Will, how you doing? Have a good game today. I'm like, all right, I do quite a bit of public speaking around, and I know we have quite a few ladies in the audience here, and I'm always getting a question or two from the ladies about, hey, what goes on the mound, when you guys go out there, and I know Paul and Colton, I don't know if Mike does this, but, when we went out on the mound, Tony wanted all the infielders to come around because we might move defenses or whatever it was, and so we had to move people around. So we're in San Diego, and it's military day, all right? So you think back to, like Bull Durham when they had the meeting on the mound, and, hey, what to get him for his wedding, candelabras, and Jose needs a fried chicken, and some of that stuff goes on. So we're in San Diego, and it's military day, and we get out in the top of the first. They go to the bottom of the first, and their leadoff hitter hits a homer, right? And I didn't know this at the time, but they had the cannon behind me. And so because the military is there, boom, they shoot the cannon. Whoa, geez, one of them numbers, And so we get the next guy out. Third guy's Tony Gwynn, we can never get out. And whack, he hits a homer. Boom, they shoot the cannon. All the military guys go crazy. Fourth guy comes up, Carmelo Anthony. Same thing, lay one in there. Whack, homer, boom, shoot the cannon. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going deaf over here, And so here comes the pitching coach, Dave Duncan, out to the mound. And I'm not going to tell you the pitcher's name, all right? I'm going to keep that one a secret. But, Dunk gets out to the mound. And so now here we go. Like we talked about, let's say Colton and Paul, we're all gathered around, the mound. And the pitcher's going to be a smartass. He's going to try to beat, Duncan to the punch. And he's going to go, hey, yeah, I know. I'm not getting the ball down. I'm leaving it up, middle of the plate. I'll make the adjustment, all that. And Duncan, without missing a beat, goes, no. And he points at LaRussa in the dugout. He said, Tony sent me out here to give the cannon guy time to reload. we're on the mound. We're like...
Will Clark retired as a Cardinal. He's forever a Cardinal, and he belongs to St. Louis. I know you're a Giants employee, but we love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I wanted to thank Mark. DJ, you're awesome, man. You're awesome. And, I also want to echo from, being in another organization, coming into this organization, ownership down is top-notch here. It starts with Bill DeWitt. So thank y'all. And appreciate you fans for what we do on the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Will Clark.